We started the Digital Audio Collective, registered student organization, a couple of years ago. Gabe was one of the founding members, and we've been meeting pretty much every Thursday, 4:15 to 5. Do that in the school year. Next year, we'll start it up probably the first week of school. We're hoping to set up a bunch of performances. We've done performances around the campus. We've performed at the art museum last. We've got a performance coming up. Mikey will mention that. I'll be in the Cub Art Party next week. We applied for funding. So we got funding for the Synth Lab. We built that out over the fall and then released it in January. And this summer I'll work on more documentation, so hopefully it'll be more usable this next year. But you can check out these spaces, the Audio Lab or the Synth Lab, through the library website. And there's one thing to mention just about the Digital Audio Collective is there's a lot of people with a lot of different experience. People can kind of meet folks to collaborate with. And get help with aspects of production that they don't understand, or maybe they have things to offer too. So this came about just as one of the things the Digital Audio Collective wants to do. And so the first workshop will be on FL Studio. We'll start with Everett, and Mikey will follow up. Also, they're collaborating on this, and then Gabe will show us Ableton Live starting at 5. So hopefully you can stick with it.
Well, yeah, thanks for the great intro, Jason. And yeah, like you said, I'm Everett. Thanks y'all for being here. I know it's kind of a busy time. I had a final today that I just found out about on Tuesday, so I was like scrambling to make it work. But yeah, we've been planning this for a while now, or like planning it, and that we've had the idea. And it's finally now come to fruition. So yeah, we're really excited. Thanks for being here. I've been making music for like 6.5 years, kind of in that range. So since I was a sophomore in high school, which is pretty crazy. And I started, I've almost exclusively worked in FL. I started with the demo, which is great. But I think all you guys already have FL, you guys are up and running. But yeah, what's great about the FL demo, if you don't have a DAW installed yet, is that you pretty much have all the features. The only difference is you can actually save and go back into the files your projects. But that's not really a problem when you're starting out because they're going to be trash anyways. So you're going to want to be making tracks on tracks on tracks until you kind of find your vibe and find what you want to do. But yeah, let's jump right in. So actually Gabe sent me a sample pack that I think we'll start by, let's just bring FL up. I had a project open. I know FL looks really intimidating and really crazy. Actually, let me start screen recording before we start. But yeah, I know FL looks insane and intimidating when you first open it up. I've seen people say it looks like a airplane cockpit or something. There's just so many buttons and colors and lights and everything. But we'll break it down. We'll go sort of bit by bit, and we'll make it easy to understand, hopefully. Okay,
what version is this? This 25? Is this?
I don't know.
Looks different than mine.
Well, I have a theme on. I can show you the themes. Yeah, but I don't want to show you guys this project right now. I want a blank slate so that we can kind of go through piece by piece. So, we'll start over here in the corner where you actually do that, where you go to make a new project. It'll be in this file section. This is also where you go to save a track. This is where you go to export your track. So if you want to upload this to Google Drive, send it to your friends, put it on Spotify, something like that, you'll come here. The difference between WAV files and MP3 files is mostly the quality, but WAV files are a lot bigger in size because they're uncompressed, so it'll take up a lot more storage. I usually stick with MP3s, but all my my artist friends, when I send them a beat, they get mad at me for doing that. So, know when to use a WAV file. But anyways, let's open up a new empty project. And then one other thing I want to point out here, pretty much the only two buttons you'll use up here is this file one for, like I said, new project, saving, exporting, stuff like that. The only other button I really use over here is options, and this is what it sounds like. It's your settings. So if you connect a keyboard, go to MIDI settings. If you can't hear what's coming out, go to audio settings, which let's double check right now. that my laptop is actually sending audio to this audio interface, which is then sending audio to these speakers, which is actually not. So we'll go in. This thing is called, it's called M4. So all you got to do is click this, and this is where you select where your sound comes out. If you're using headphones, it'll say like external audio or external headphone device. But yeah, we'll select M4, and then let me just make sure it's working. Cool, we can hear it. And then yeah, anything else in options? I don't think so. Oh, when you first install FL Studio, you will not have any drum kits available to you. You need to tell your computer where to find them. So first you'll have to go online. You can go to Reddit to find drum kits. You can download stuff from YouTube or anything on the internet. But what I have for us right now is, if I go back to my desktop, if I unzip this, is this big DAC Ableton workshop drum kit that Gabe sent over to me. So I'll show you guys how to select this. We'll go to Options. We'll go to File Settings. And then you can see this is all the places I've told FL Studio where to find files on my computer. So let's add a new one. We'll click that little blank folder button, and I'll go to Desktop, DAC Ableton Workshop. Let's just set it as the whole thing. It looks like there's a bunch of stuff in there. And we'll click Open. Okay, cool. And now we see we have this new folder right here. And so whatever drum kit you installed, that would have the name of that right there. So what I have is like, I have this massive drum kits folder, and I just like have so many of them, and it's disorganized, whatever, you'll find stuff, yeah. Okay, so we went over this kind of the stuff up here. Moving over to the right, we'll just stick to the top right now before we get into all this junk down here. So we have like our play button, we have our pause button. If you want to record, you'll toggle this on or off, which I'm not going to talk about recording in this. I think maybe Mikey will get to it. Otherwise, we can save that for another day because it's kind of complicated. Here's your tempo, which is like how fast FL Studio is going to play your song back to you. And then we'll get back to this later, this pattern versus song sort of toggle button, because it's kind of a unique and really important part of FL Studio, this workflow going between patterns and song mode. But yeah, we'll come back to that. And then before we dive in, I just want to go visit one other section. And so there's 5 buttons that are important right here. And then the tempo tapper is how you like click along to a sample. It's kind of important, but not really. So really there's 5 buttons over here that are important. And what they do is, well, so FL Studio works in windows, which is kind of weird. There's like these different windows you can turn on and off, and they kind of cover each other and they can get lost. But as long as you know what these 5 buttons do, you can always kind of bring that window back up to the top so you can access it again. And so we'll just go through, and I'm going to name these off and briefly say what each of these 5 windows do. And then we'll go through each of them in depth, and that'll kind of be the entirety of like what I'm talking about today. So first of all, we have what's called the playlist. This is like your entire song. This is kind of like, if you wanted to fully zoom out, you want to see the beginning of your song and the end of your song on the same screen, you'll come here. This is where you will arrange what we call patterns. This is where you'll have, if you're sampling something or if you're recording your vocals, you'll do it in here. This is like kind of the main page. Yeah, that's all with that. The next page we have is called the piano roll. And this is where you essentially make MIDI sequences. And if you don't know what MIDI is, the way I kind of like to describe it is it's like sheet music. So we have these instruments, and we can load them into FL Studio. Maybe the instrument is like a hi-hat. Maybe it's a flute from a VST. But we need to tell it when to play and what pitch to play at. And we'll come here to do that. And we'll sort of write sheet music in this section. Yeah, so that's the piano roll. Moving on, we have the channel rack, which is a really unique sort of like multi-purpose sequencer, audio file like collector. It does everything, and it's at this channel rack where we'll make our patterns, which is kind of like I alluded to before, part of this system switching between pattern and song mode. So this is really important. It's actually inspired by like old sequencers. If you guys know like the old 808, I can show you guys a picture. It's pretty cool. But you'll see the resemblance, and this is a cool kind of full circle moment because, I don't know if I have. We'll see if it loads. But this is what invented the 808 like bass, which is in so much modern hip hop. And so I think it's kind of cool that this really core part of FL Studio is kind of modeled after this thing. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar with what an 808 is, it's like that really boomy bass that we love so much. And yeah, it's like at its core, FL Studio is kind of like, I don't want to say meant for hip hop, but it has hip hop in mind. So if you make hip hop, FL is a great choice for you. But yeah, I got distracted. Anyways, so that's the channel rack. We'll come back to it. Then we have the mixer. This is where you're going to send all of your audio and you're going to put effects on it. So if you want to add reverb to something, you'll have to tell it which one of these slots to go into, and then you'll be able to put your effects on there. It's not too complicated. This is also like, this is where you can see where like the final place the audio goes to before it comes out of the speakers, which is in this master track thing. And then lastly, we have it's called the browser. This is where you can actually tell your computer, hey, these are my files. I would like to have them at all times to access. And they're gonna show up in this window over here. I know some people like to like close this thing. I just always have it open. But yeah, you'll spend a lot of time in the browser just clicking through drum sounds until you find that one that works. Yeah, but let's start here. Let's go and we'll find a sound and we'll see where we go with it. So let's go into this kit that Gabe sent me. We'll go into drums. And I think I want to start off by like making just some sort of little quick drum loop. But so I think it's pretty easy to get stuck here because you're like, okay, well I want to use this drum, but like, where do I put it? I guess I could put it in the playlist, and you can do that, and you have that option. And a lot of people do make their drums in here, but you also have the option to bring it into the channel rack and to treat it like a MIDI sound that can be triggered by a sequence that we give it. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll come over, we'll bring our drum here, and what it's going to do is it's loading this audio file into something called the sampler. And if we sorry, let me rewind a little bit. So we see that our sound is here. The way I dragged that in is I brought it just underneath the previous one so that little purple line shows up. Otherwise, it'll just replace it, which sometimes you want to do. Sometimes you want to replace a sound here, but sometimes you don't. Anyways, we have our sound in here, and pretty much all across FL Studio, like if you click on a sound source, it'll bring up some sort of advanced settings page. In this case, our advanced page is called the sampler. And here we have a ton of different settings that we can tweak. But right now, let's just get like a few more drum sounds going, and we'll make some sort of loop. So we'll throw a hi-hat in, good enough to me. We'll find some sort of snare. This is kind of cool. And then I'll just start clicking away. And this, so I'll bring up this song versus pattern thing here. If you have song mode selected and you click play, even if you have a bunch of MIDI notes in here telling all these drums to play at certain times, you're not going to hear anything. And it's because we have this song mode selected. So FL Studio is trying to play in the playlist like we talked about before, but we haven't actually put this pattern into the playlist yet. So if we want to do that, we can come over here to this MIDI section. On the playlist, there's kind of like two audio sources. There's raw audio and there's MIDI. Patterns are always MIDI. So yeah.
Actually, no, you finish your thought. I was just going to ask what a pattern was.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to a pattern. I think it'll make more sense once we sort of flesh it out. We'll talk about like why you would need a second pattern. Yeah. But yeah, so all of your patterns will eventually get collected here. And actually, this would be a good time to talk about that. So eventually as you build your track out, you'll start to have tons and tons. This will get long because you'll have so many different sounds you're using. You'll have like a bass, you'll have drums, you'll have melodies and all sorts of things. And you don't want them to always just be playing the same thing because that's boring. And so you'll need it's like new pages of your sheet music. So if this is like the sheet music for all of these different instruments we have over here, we sometimes need to turn the page, and the equivalent of doing that in FL Studio is like making a new pattern. So we still have all of our old instruments, but now we can give them new things to play. And so what you'll do is like you'll kind of prepare all of your patterns, and it's once you get to this playlist that you'll be able to pick which patterns play and when. And you'll be able to combine them with raw audio that you also pick out. So this could be like vocals, this could be some sort of sample you got from YouTube. But if you're selected on the song mode and you haven't placed any patterns down yet, there's nothing for it to play. But I don't really want to go into the playlist just yet. I want to focus on my pattern. So all I have to do is click this pattern little toggle up here, and now it's telling FL Studio, play the channel rack. So we have this little kick drum sequence. Let's slow it down. Let's add some hi-hats in here. All right, nice. That's kind of pleasant. Don't want it to sound awful as we're going through this. Yeah, so this is a really basic pattern. This is a pretty easy place to start off. But what if you want, I don't know, what if you want to do like a little hi-hat roll? Or what if you want to pitch the hi-hat around? We don't really have that level of control here. All we can really do is like click on this kind of constrained grid that doesn't have too many options for us. And so now we'll reveal kind of a secret that the channel rack has. And it's that this sequencer is actually kind of like an oversimplified version of the piano roll that's been beneath the whole time. So if you remember the piano roll that we kind of talked about earlier, it was this thing. We can like zoom out in the piano roll. We can select multiple notes in the piano roll. And it turns out that these little lights here have been placing notes in the piano roll for us. And so let's say we want to, I don't know, pitch the kick drum down a little bit. That's like a reasonable thing to do. What you need to do is you just right click on the sample here, and you'll select this piano roll button. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring you to like the more detailed version of the sheet music here. And so what we can do at this point is we can pitch the kick drum up and get all the way up here, or we can pitch it down. Or we have more fine-tuned controls like velocity, which is kind of like how loud the kick drum is playing. It actually correlates with like how hard you press the keys on a MIDI keyboard. That's why it's called velocity and not volume. But yeah, let's say we want to make like a really light kick right here before our loop resets. So we can do that by adding a note in here. And then we just turn down the velocity just like this. And something weird is going to happen when we place a note like this if we go back to the channel rack. And we don't get that nice kind of like those little clicky buttons like we did before. And that's because once we make these notes have a certain length to them, they switch to what's called an ADSR mode, which I'll go ahead and show you with a more melodic sound so that we can kind of hear more what's going on. So are there any one-shots in here, Gabe?
Oh, there's plenty.
Okay,
Oh,
like a flute or something.
Oof, actually, there might not be.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
It's all loops.
No, it's okay. I have some. So I'm going to go back into my drum kits. And one-shots are like single notes of like a synth or something so that you can load them into your channel rack and then treat them like a full music instrument with like different notes and stuff like that. Okay. One-shots. See, and I know where that is because I've day by day put a new drum kit in here. All right. We'll go into here. Let's just get like... All right, sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to drag the sound in, just like I did with the drums earlier. And so what we were saying before is like, okay, we don't want this to just play in this one-shot mode. So these are just telling it, hey, I'm going to, play all the way through. Each time this light is on, it's going to tell the sound, play all the way through. So like if I guess, never mind, but whatever. So ADSR mode. Oh, it's because there's loop points on. Loop points is weird. If you ever run into problems, it's probably because your loop points are on. Yeah, but once we turn that off, it's going to play all the way through every time I click play and pause. And sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want more control. It's kind of like having the release on the piano, that pedal. It's like holding it down at all times. And sometimes you want, when you lift your hands off the keys, you want the sound to stop as well. And so how we do that is we're going to go into our advanced settings of this sound by clicking on it. So we're kind of in this like sampler window, and we'll come over here to this like, if you see this little shape here, that is an ADSR. And what ADSR stands for is attack, decay, sustain, release. And there's like these kind of 4 parts of the sound that we're allowed to actually kind of tweak and alter. So the attack is how long it takes the sound to like come up to full volume. So if we turn the attack up and we play a note, we can hear it kind of fades in over time. If we make this much shorter, we can hear it much quicker. So let's kind of just make it like a little medium value. We also have this hold thing, which like tells it how long it's going to wait at the top. I don't know, it doesn't matter that much. Don't worry too much about it. Decay is how long it takes for the sound to go from full volume to whatever your sustain volume is at. So let's say we want our sustain volume to be 0. We want our sound to come up, wait a second, and then come back down again. So let's see what that sounds like. Or we can make it shorter so you can kind of hear how this is how we tweak kind of the contour of our sound, how responsive it is. But a pretty standard ADSR shape is kind of like, you have a little bit of attack, you have a little bit of decay, your sustain is kind of like in the middle somewhere, and then you have a little bit of release. And this you can kind of play like some sort of keyboard. And this is kind of like a good place to start if you're adding some keys or something. But what's nice about this is like if you're doing something like a bass, you do not want to play 2 bass notes at one time because something called like destructive interference will happen, which if you remember from like high school physics, when there's one wave with a negative polarity and one with a positive polarity, they'll cancel each other out. You don't want that happening with your 808s. So when you have 808s, you do not want any attack and you do not want any release. This way, when you tell the 808 to stop playing, it'll cut itself off. It will not continue playing while the next 808 plays and create some sort of phasing issues. But let's go back to what we had before and add some sort of chord. Oh, and then, so there's like a couple really nice shortcuts to know if you're working in FL. Holding Command down, if you're on Mac, whatever the equivalent button is on Windows, clicking and dragging will allow you to select things. Left clicking places stuff, right clicking deletes stuff. And if you select something and you hold Command B, it'll duplicate it so that the next one places it wherever the end of the previous one was. And this is just really handy as you're working with like these big chords that you don't want to click in a new one every single time. But yeah, so let's just like add a chord here so we have something to work with. Okay, cool. That sounds pretty cool, right? But I don't know, I think if you heard this for like a minute, you get like pretty sick of it. So we run into a problem because we're like, well, I want to make this longer because I want to add a second chord, but I don't really want to have to click all these drums in again. And so this is where our whole pattern system comes in. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this part of the sheet music towards the synth because I want to have my drums as one pattern and my synth as a separate pattern. That way I can also have like my synth playing without my drums or my drums playing without my synth. So let's go in here, right click, and we'll do cut. Or actually, wait, let me copy this first. So I'm just doing Command Z to undo, just like any other application. So I'll do copy, and then I'll do cut. This way I can go in, well, I guess we had this like goofball pattern from before. So I guess we'll be in pattern 3 now. We'll go into pattern 3, we'll open it up. We have our blank sheet music. We don't want to add any drums or anything because we already have our other pattern for our drums. So I'll paste in our chord here. And now let's make our drums so that they just loop over and over. So we have a lot of room for this new actual musical pattern. So I'm going to think to myself, okay, pattern 2, that's my drums. I'm going to select it here. We're on the playlist right now. We'll plop that guy down. And then I'm going to do just like before in the piano roll. Command, click, select, Command B, make that long. And then I'll come in here, grab my pattern 3, place it down. And now I can extend pattern 3 so that as pattern 3 goes through its cycle, pattern 2 is looping over and over. And like, I know you're probably thinking like, oh, you could have just like duplicated the drums in just that time. But when you're actually like working, not explaining how you're going things, it's much quicker to work this way, which is pretty convenient. And another thing that's nice about this too, is that if I go into pattern 2 and I want to like make some sort of tweak and like, I don't know, delete this hi-hat, that change will be reflected across all of the other patterns. Okay, it's 4:30, so I'm going to speed things up a little bit. I'm just going to extend this chord, and then we'll throw some effects on it in the mixer. So I'm going to duplicate this chord over, and then I'm just going to, another nice sort of shortcut that's good to have is if you hold shift and use the arrow keys, you can transpose entire groups of notes up and down, which is super nice. So I'm just going to go down by like 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's a perfect 5th, but down. So it always sounds good. Oh, and now I have a problem. It's like I want that note to play out for longer. Because because it's kind of cutting off and there's so much silence. So this is actually a perfect time to bring up the mixer so that we can add some reverb. So the way we do that is we find the source of our sound, which is coming from this pattern, right? And so we'll go into the settings, or I guess you can do this from multiple places. It's kind of a weird part of FL is like there's usually multiple places to do things, which is nice because you have flexibility, and there's multiple just ways to do things in general. Like I said earlier, like you could make your drums in the playlist if you wanted. You would have to you couldn't have these nice patterns like little loops and move them around and such, but you could. But so the way we work in the mixer is we have all these different lanes that we can send different sounds to. On each lane, we'll have like some sort of set of effects. And so what we'll do right now is first we need to tell our synth which lane to go to. So let's just tell it lane 2. And now we'll open up the mixer, and we know that our synth is coming to lane 2. So let's just double check. And we can see it's coming through. And so now what we'll need to do to add effects is we'll come over here, and this is our 10 options for effects. And if you ever run out of effects for some reason, you can always like do some routing to give yourself another 10. So you can actually send these lanes into each other and then send them to the master. So you can get really complicated with it if you want to, which is pretty neat. But what we want to do right now is we'll select over here to insert our effect, and we'll just find the default reverb, which is right up here. And then what I want to do is, I mean, we clearly don't have enough time to go over like types of effects and stuff like that, but there's tons of great tutorials on YouTube. But yeah, we added our reverb. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'll turn it up a little bit. But yeah, you can kind of hear that ringing out a little bit. Anyways, yeah. Another way to make this sound actually last longer would be to pitch it down too. Because as we pitch this down, the way that it's pitching it down in the first place is by stretching it out. So we can get a little more length this way. Let's hear what we're sounding like. Okay, are there any questions at this point? Cool. No one? All right, well, let's go ahead and add, let me think if there's any other areas we can visit that would be interesting. Let's actually work with some raw audio because we haven't done that quite yet. And that'll be the last thing we get to. So we sort of covered we have this loop sort of thing. We can make these little ideas. We have this sampler that we can put our drums into. We can also load in these one-shots and change how they feel to play and change how long it takes for them to stop playing and to start playing. Another thing, before we move on, we want to actually use this, but if you want to add an actual synth, like a plugin, we're not taking some previously made audio file. If we want to actually add something that makes its own audio, you just come here down to this plus button. And one that I would recommend you guys to start off on is Flex. It's a built-in FL Studio plugin. It has a ton of great stuff in here. You can also download, I really like this synthwave one. You can download it for free. It doesn't come with it, but yeah. So that's how you add a plugin, and there's a lot more flexibility with plugins. There's a ton of reasons to use them, but let's find some sort of sample that we can try and put in here. So let's, Gabe, are there samples in your?
Yes,
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's melodic.
Okay, melodic. So let's just pick one of these. We're at 114. So let's pick something that's at least a little bit close. Let's see. Is there anything close?
I don't know.
Well, oh well, it doesn't matter. Let's pick. I think you're gonna use that one later, right? Ooh, this is cool. All right. So once we found something we like, we're gonna click it, hold it, drag it in. And now immediately we're met with a problem, and it's that our song is at one speed, at 1 BPM, at one tempo, whatever word you want to use. And our sample we just dragged in is at a different one. And there's probably 3 or 4 ways that you can get them to agree with each other. But what's nice about this sample right here is that it tells us the BPM it's at. It tells us that it's at 85. Or I'm just assuming that number is what it is, because usually if there's a number on your sample, that's the BPM. So what we can do is we can meet our sample where it's at in terms of BPM up here with the tempo. So let's do that right now. Let's go to 85. And now there's actually a way to tell the sample now to stick on to this to like, it's almost like we're gonna like push it onto the actual playlist itself, so that once we move the tempo the next time, it'll stretch with the playlist. It'll like grow and shrink with it. And the way we do that is we double click on the sample, and it brings up sort of a similar looking page to before when we had our samples in here and we were bringing up this. But there's not the envelope feature anymore, because we aren't triggering this with MIDI. This is actually living in our project itself. So what we'll do is we'll come in here, and instead of resample mode, we're going to switch this to stretch mode. And this is going to tell it to, like I said, it's going to stretch with the BPM of our actual track. So now we can come back up to where we were before, which was at like 114. And I don't think that these are going to be in key with each other. So I'm going to just mute the synth that we had before. And the way you do that is you click on this light here, and that's going to prevent it from playing. So let's hear what that sounds like. I don't like that. I think that's way too fast. So there's another way we can manipulate raw audio in the playlist, and it's with this little double arrow icon here. This is like the stretch icon. So when we have this turned on and we come to the edge of an audio file, what happens when you don't have it on and you do this is like you kind of just like crop it, sort of like cropping a photo. But when you turn it on, it's not going to crop it at all. It's going to maintain the actual length of the audio clip and stretch it out. So let's pull it all the way out here just to slow this down by half. And that sounds way better. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't want to eat too much of Mikey's time up, but yeah. Any questions? Yeah, Gabe.
Yeah, how do you, like, if I wanted to pitch a drum sample up, how would I do that?
It depends where it is, but yeah, let's there's a few ways to do it. So like before, we can actually go to the MIDI itself, and like we can tell it to play a different note of the piano. And so kind of like before, we'll use that shift arrow to sort of shift our, let's shift our kick drum like way down. So now it's like lower pitch. Or another thing you can do is you can go into these advanced settings here with the sampler, and there's like this little pitch knob here. So we can turn this down. And that's going to pitch it down even more because we're telling it to be pitched down in MIDI and in the actual sampler. And then a similar idea if you are, here, let's drag our kick drum into the actual playlist. If your kick drum is in the playlist, you can also, there's a new different type of pitch knob here, but you can also use this pitch knob. Or like I said before, like depending on the mode you have this selected in, when you stretch out audio, it's also going to pitch it down.
Makes sense. Okay, cool.
Cool. Yeah. Any other questions? Did I miss anything, Mikey? I think I covered it all. Soft clipper on master. That's one thing.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I got something up on the channel rack, so I can hear it play. And then I've got something else on the playlist, but I don't know how to like play what's on the playlist, because every time I hit play, it just plays the rack.
Oh, so we covered this earlier, but there's this toggle up here that goes between playing your pattern and your song, which is your playlist. Yeah. Cool. All right, any other questions? All right, that's it. Thanks, everyone. And now I'll give it up to Mikey, who I think is going to show us how he makes a beat.
Pretty much.
Yeah, all right, sweet.
Thanks, Everett, for going over the basics and introduction to FL Studio. My name is Mikey. I'm a producer and artist, and I've been working with FL Studio for like 7 years now. I've probably made over like 1,000 beats at this point. I've worked with hundreds of artists. I have like 20 million streams across all platforms. I used to post daily type beats on a YouTube channel that just hit 10,000 subscribers. So all of that is to say that I've got a lot of experience with FL Studio, and I hope you guys can learn something from this. So yeah, I'm pretty much going to be going through and speed running, making a beat, showing you guys my process and my workflow and just what I'm thinking when I'm making a beat. So yeah, we're in FL Studio right now in the playlist, and usually what I like to do is start off with a sample or something melodic, and thankfully Everett made a great jazz sample. I mean, it's not really jazzy, but he made this jazz sample yesterday. So I threw that in the playlist, but I can see, just by eye looking at it, it doesn't match up with the grid, which means the BPM is off. So you can either go into this tempo tapper and tap the tempo to find it, or you can just adjust the BPM here to kind of match it to the grid. So you can see everything's kind of lined up here. But I also did notice on this sample, there's a bit of like empty time just at the start here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that down.
What shortcut are you using to do that?
So I just clicked on this button here. It's called the slip tool. It basically allows you to move around the actual like waveform within whatever audio clip you've got here without adjusting the actual size of it. So the clip is the same size. So, and a lot of the times you'll find samples with a bit of extra space at the beginning. And I'm just gonna cut off a little bit at the end there too. So since I'm planning on adding an 808 and a bass, I'm gonna cut out the low end for this. So I'm gonna send it to the mixer track with Control L, right? So it sent it to track number 1 here. And then I can see it in the mixer. I'm going to rename it to sample, just to stay organized. And then I'm going to look for Fruity Parametric EQ 2. Change this to 40 hertz cut, and then drag it here around 150 hertz to just cut out the low end, so you can hear it now. There's less low end. If I turn it off, you can hear it. And yeah, so now that we've got our sample, I think I'm going to move on to adding some drums. So I'm going to make a new pattern, or I'm just going to drag the pattern into the playlist just to get it there, just to visualize it. You don't need to necessarily put it here first. And then I'm going to click Control B or Command B and duplicate it so it matches the entire length of the sample. And the sample is great, but this part just plays over and over again, and I kind of want to add some alteration to this. So I know that here it kind of goes down in pitch, and I want to use that here. So I'm going to press C and cut this, and then go back and right click there and drag it over. So now we've got 3 of the same piano chops playing, and then it goes down a little bit, and then down even more. And I'm actually going to cut that again, cut out this part, move this over, so now this part sounds like. Right, so now we have that clip. I'm going to do Control B to duplicate that all over to the other side, so it just, you know, I've got 2 instances of the 8-bar pattern. And then I'll click on this. So now I'm in the actual pattern that I'm going to do for the drums. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my browser, look for maybe a snare first or a clap or something. You can just go through these until you find something. This sounds all right. So I'm going to go to the channel rack, drag it in, and then just put a simple pattern down. This is a pretty typical snare pattern. I can actually mute the sample so you guys can hear it. It just plays, you know, in between every bar. That sounds pretty good. But I am noticing it's a bit slow. So I'm going to adjust the BPM. But before I do that, I'm going to go in here and switch the mode to stretch. Because if I don't do that, as Everett was mentioning, it'll kind of just change the size of the thing. Like and it overlaps here. So I'm gonna do Control Z, so I undo that, and then I'm gonna set this to stretch mode. So now I can change the BPM up to like 140 maybe. And it just plays a little faster.
Can you stretch that? You only have to change that to like one of those like samples, and it does it for all the copy paste of that?
Yeah, so basically each of these little clips, like this one, and this one, they're all connected into this same view right here. So like, for example, if I were to pitch this up, it applies to all of them. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna add a hi-hat now to add some bounce and just some rhythm to it. So it's in the channel rack now. And I'll just click in a simple pattern. So I like that. But instead of just clicking that in a second time in the channel rack, I'm going to go into the actual piano roll now, which, like Everett was saying, is pretty much just a more expanded view of the channel rack. I'm going to select all of these notes I already did for these 2 bars, click Control B, and now it plays the full 4 bars. And that'll just loop over and over again because I have the pattern put 4 times here. So now I'm thinking maybe a open hat would be nice. Let's see, I'm gonna go into a different kit. Look for an open hat. I like this one. And then I'll just put it on the 1. And then here. I like that. And then something I like to do, which not everybody does, is I like to just kind of send all of my sounds to the mixer as I'm producing and not do it at the end, just so you can stay organized. And it's also just a good habit to name all of your mixer tracks. So hi-hat, snare, open hat. Oops. And from here you can kind of adjust the sounds as you go, the levels. So that's sounding pretty good. What do you guys think I should add next in terms of drums? Anybody?
Kick.
A kick? Okay. So I'm gonna go into my kick folder, find a kick. This one sounds good. I'm gonna boost it a little bit, just so we get it a little louder compared to the other parts, or the other drum sounds. I'm gonna put in a simple drum pattern just in the channel rack. So now we got that.
Maybe a one-shot.
A whoa. Not sure if I have that.
Download
But-
a sample pack. It has a woo in there.
Oh, does it?
It does. But it's okay.
Okay, next time. But as you guys can hear, there's not a lot of low end, so other than the kick, of course. So I think I'm gonna add an 808. Go through these, or maybe more like a sub bass sound. So I'm gonna drag this into the channel rack, and you can see the waveform is right there. And
Oh, wait.
did someone just airdrop me something?
It's a woo.
But like Everett was saying, for bass sounds, you want to turn pretty much all of these down except the hold, just so they don't interfere with each other when you actually place the bass notes in the piano roll. So with your bass notes, the most important thing is just finding the root of whatever sample you're playing. And a nice way to do that is to kind of first put your 808s or your bass in a higher pitch so you can hear it better. So that's wrong. can kind of hear it just kind of sounds right. It sounds like it goes along with the melody. And then I'm just gonna basically do a pattern with the bass notes, something simple. See, but when it plays this one, it sounds a bit off, right? Because I'm just having the same F sharp bass note playing, but in the actual sample, it goes down. So instead, what I'm gonna do, instead of doing the bass in the same channel as the drums, which are only 4 bars, I'm actually gonna create a new pattern, name it bass, right? And then I'll go back into my channel rack. I'll copy the bass from the original pattern, cut it, and then drag this here and paste the bass into the new pattern. So now the bass has 8 bars to play here. And then it goes down, so I'm just gonna find that new note, that new kind of bass note that the sample is playing. I think that's right. I'm just gonna put that down an octave so it plays lower. And I mean, you could stop here, you know, if you want to keep it simple. I think when you're learning the basics, it's definitely a wise choice to keep things simple, you know, because there's a lot of buttons, a lot of knobs that, you know, you really don't need to know how to use all of these if you're just trying to get into music production. Just, you know, putting sounds in your channels and in the playlist will do for the most part. So now I just want to make sure everything's sent to the mixer. So I'll do Control L and these automatically get sent to the mixer. I'll name this kick. I'll name this bass. And typically, you know, from here, let's just say we finished like the main drums and the main bass, you know, pretty much we've got all of our patterns done. So now I'm just going to work on arranging. So let's say the first 8 bars is the intro. So I can actually go here and add a little time marker to say this is intro, and then this is the hook, which will make like 8 bars, and then 8 bars after that we can do verse, and then hook again. You can just extend this. Oops. And then outro. And sometimes it's good to just kind of map out where your intro, hook, verse, hook, and outro are going to be before you actually do the arranging. So right now we've got all of our sounds in patterns, or at least all of our drums. So all of our drums are playing within this one pattern. The kick, the hi-hat, and the snare, right? But if you want more control over each sound and how you arrange each sound within the playlist, you can go ahead and delete the pattern. It still exists over here in the left side. You can right-click and you can go to split by channel. So now we've got 4 separate patterns with each of those sounds. So hi-hat, snare, open hat, and the kick. And I'm essentially just gonna make sure they're all 4 bars and then duplicate it. And we've basically got the hook done now. So I can copy this hook over to the second hook section, same exact thing. And then let's say for the verse, we want to take out the kick and just have the bass. So got the bass. Now just the bass is playing. But maybe, you know, we want the hi-hat there too. And maybe also the snare. And then maybe now we want to bring in the kick again and take out the hi-hat. So it goes from this and then, you know, I guess this could be considered the verse, or, you know, you could call it like a bridge or something. We'll just have the bass and the sample playing. And then goes back into the hook. And right now our outro is just cutting hard. So let's say maybe we want to make that outro a little bit smoother. So I'm gonna select the area here and then go into the actual clip, click on volume, and then create automation clip. And then we can drag this down, and now this sample will kind of just fade out nicely instead of cutting hard. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the beat. Does anybody have any questions? Or anything that I should add?
What if you did a reverb tail out of the song?
A reverb tail, okay. So
How would you go about doing that?
So let's see, we see, I can double click into the sample, sent to track 1, we already knew that. I'll go and add reverb. You know, you can use Fruity Reverb, the default, you know, stock plugin. But I would recommend, if you really want to get into music production, look into getting third-party VSTs. Like for this one, for example, Valhalla Vintage Verb is a nice one. And you know, you can hear the reverb affecting the sound, but it doesn't sound great when the reverb is on when the actual beat is playing. So for that, I'll do the same thing I did for the volume automation. Just select this. I'll turn the reverb all the way down so it's not playing for the beginning part. Create an automation clip, and then drag the reverb up here. So I'll remove the volume automation just so you can hear it. But basically, when the sample ends now, kind of just fades and blurs into reverb. Nice ambience. Yeah. Any other questions or things people want to see? Yeah.
How do you usually go about layering?
Layering? In terms of the sample, or what do you mean?
Just like generally when you're creating a beat, like, because I know the few times I have attempted to create beats, they always end up sounding like kind of empty, even though all the components are there. So like, how, like, what do you recommend, like, generally going about layering? Like,
well, let's say, for example, so we've got this piano melody, right? This is pretty much the only melodic element playing, except for the bass, if you count that. So if I wanted to layer something on top of that, I would create a new pattern and called piano, and then I'll stretch that out to be 8 bars. And then now, if we go into this piano pattern, this is a whole fresh pattern. I can go back into the channel rack and maybe add a piano VST, like Addictive Keys, right? And then, you know, so, one second. can, play the actual MIDI on your keyboard if you turn this button on, but for this example, I'll just go into the piano roll and actually place the notes. So now we've got this piano melody layered on top of the other piano melody. And it plays throughout the whole thing. I'll send that to the mixer. Turn it down a little bit. And that just kind of gives your melodic elements a little, it makes them a little bit more interesting. You can obviously do something way more complex, but is that kind of what you meant? Okay, cool. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Before I hand it off to Gabe, I do want to mention, and I want to promote our last live performance of the school year coming up a week from 6 days from now on Wednesday, April 29th. We're going to have 4 live performances, rapping, singing, and a dance act, all happening in the Cub Auditorium at 6:30 to 8 p.m. There's flyers on that table back there if you're interested, or you can join our Discord for all of the information. And yeah, I hope to see you guys there.
All right, so kind of jumping into this, first off, hello, my name is Gabe. I have been a music producer. I mean, I really started back in like middle school and whatnot, but I've been producing in Ableton since the 9th grade, so about 7 years. So I've done a whole lot of like electronic music. I do a lot of like bass music, but I also do a lot of like hip hop stuff, and I work with some hip hop artists out from Seattle and whatnot. And yeah, no. So kind of just jumping into a whole new project here. Let me actually. Cool. So all right. What Ableton is, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but when you open up Ableton, it's probably going to look something like this. And so this is called the session view right here. And the session view is kind of like similar to FL's version of like patterns and whatnot. Personally, I have used the session view twice. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip that, and we're gonna click this button up here, and that's gonna put us into the arrangement view. You can also use tab to kind of toggle in between those two things. So yeah, okay, cool. Kind of jumping into this. First things first, let's just go out over the layout of Ableton, right? So we've got our play button up here. Oh, I'm gonna turn this off. We've got our play button up here. We've got our pause button right here. And, just like in most other softwares with a timeline, you can press space and space again to stop it, right? You've also got your record button up here, and we'll go into actually recording audio at some point here. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on up here. On the left side up here, you've got your draw tool, and this will be really helpful. I mean, I don't use it a ton, but it'll be helpful when you're doing stuff like drawing out MIDI. But anyway, you've got that, and then you've got your keyboard button right here, and this basically just turns your computer keyboard into like a musical keyboard, right? And so I use that a lot for like making a melody idea. So yeah, so that's that. And then on the left side of this, you've got your tempo right here, and you can drag up and down your tempo. You can also just click and let's go 140, and so now our track tempo is at 140 beats per minute. And so if you click the metronome, which is these two big things right here, you can start. You can hear how fast we're going, right? And so Yeah. Okay. So kind of we've got all of this covered right now. I'm kind of gonna go over this top bar real quick. On Mac, this is what it's gonna look like. In Windows, it might look a little bit different, but you'll still have pretty much the exact same things on this top bar. So if we wanted to create a new live set, we would click this up here. If you wanted to open your live set, you would use that. And then saving is right over here. You can save a copy, save live set as. One of my favorite things is that you can save a live set with literally all of its samples that you've used. So you can send it to a friend that like wants to open up the project file. And I actually made you guys an Ableton project file so that you can open up one of my projects and you don't need any external plugins. You can literally just open it up and see how something like pretty much done would look like, right? So, and we'll actually jump into that file in a bit here. But anyway, the last thing you really need to know over here is the export audio video, and if we can export like an audio video clip, and yeah, so you can kind of explore these, but this is the bare bones. Really, that's pretty much all you need to know. Up here is settings, and that just goes into like all of your settings down here and whatnot. So, yeah, okay, I'm. Any questions so far about just the layout up top? Dope. Okay, let's go to the browser on the left-hand side here. So there's a few things going on here. First off, you can have all of your stuff like favorited up here. This will like populate itself as you favorite different tools and samples and whatnot. Then right here, you've got literally every sample, every like plugin and everything you could use right over here, right? And then you go down to sounds, and these are solely MIDI sounds that you can use for your music. And Everett kind of brushed over what MIDI is, but for me, like the way that I would describe it is it's literally it is a trigger to your computer to tell your computer to play a sound, right? And so if you want to create it's literally just a signal, and then you have to have an actual instrument in Ableton to be able to get sound out of it, right? So if we created a little MIDI clip right here and did Command-Shift-M and then just literally placed down a note, do you guys think that that note would play out loud?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, well let's give it a shot. Turning the metronome off. No, right? So there's no sounds coming out. And so we can grab like one of these sounds right down here. That's a perfect sound, right? Now we've got sound coming out, right? If that so, and we can start building out stuff here. We'll do more of this, but I'm just trying to show like that's what MIDI is. That's how you would where a lot of your sounds would be. Here's a lot of your drums. This is specifically for your drum rack, which is like kind of like FL's version. You can get a drum rack and then create a MIDI track, and you would do insert empty MIDI clip right here, or you could just do Command-Shift-M, and that would do the same thing. And we can kind of start building out. Hold up, I'm gonna turn my narrow. So we kind of, this allows you to listen to your samples as you're placing them. Right. Cool, beautiful. So that's that. And then over here you've got instruments. It's just like your audio stuff or your MIDI stuff right here, but you can design your own sounds. One of my favorite things to play with is Operator. It is a very powerful synth, and it can gets into FM and everything, which is a whole other sound design thing. But anyway, you've got your audio effects right here. This is probably where I spend the most time in Ableton. Ableton has amazing built-in audio effects, and the way that an audio effect works is if I double-click up here and then go to the bottom right here, you've got your synth, right? And I can start placing down, like, let's put a reverb on this, right? And that's pretty... So we've turned our decay up, and so you can really hear it, right? So every audio effect that you place is going to like it's going to happen in this like sequence way, right? You can have multiple things going on, but I think right now, for the sake of simplicity, that's kind of how placing audio effects down and yeah, that's kind of that. And so yeah, that's all of this stuff right here. Are we following so far? Who's following? Okay, cool. Awesome. And no questions? Dope. Okay, so pretty much everything else here, like you've got your plugins right here, and this is where, like, if you download something from the internet, this is where you would pull in from. And so I've got all of these plugin companies right here, and you can just go in here and grab a plugin. So yeah. So let's go down. So this right here is where you can like tell Ableton where all of your personal sound packs and tools are gonna be, right? So right down here, I've got like so I will put a link up here because you've been amazing and been here so long that you guys can get like a sample pack that I put together for you that has a ton of shit. So yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's get into like making an actual beat, right? So we've got we've got our 140 BPM going. 3, 4. So now so the way that I start doing stuff is I start with kicks. And so I showed you the drum rack way of putting stuff down, but I honestly prefer to do it straight onto the timeline right here. So we're just gonna do, I like that. And that's pretty loud. So I'm gonna turn that down just a little bit. And so we've now got our kick down, right? And I'm going to do Command D to duplicate, right? So we're going to do. Okay, and I'm also going to do Command L to just loop this to see what it would sound like. Awesome. Okay, so we've got a kick down. Let's grab a snare. I like this one right here. Okay, and so kind of in the, honestly, for the most part, when you have like one main hi-hat or one main snare, it's literally gonna play right here. There's definitely exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's where it's gonna play. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Okay, and so I'm gonna go in and actually kind of want to pitch the kick up one semitone. That means pitching it up. And so I'm going to double click this right here. And now we've got this whole new screen. It's a lot of stuff going on there. But so it's actually really not all that complicated, especially for what you need to know, right? So up here, you've got your warp right here. And this basically allows you to stretch a sample in time and whatnot. For the sake of this, we're not going to put warp on. We're literally just going to pitch it up one, right? And we've gone from... Okay, it all sounds the same. This is a poor example. However, you can pitch stuff up, and this is right. So we'll just do that, right? So that's pretty much this. You can turn something down right here, turn it way up, you know, and then yeah, honestly, that's all we really need to know right now in this screen. So right, okay. I'm gonna turn this to 145 a little faster. Okay, let's put some hi-hats down. I like that. Okay, so I'm gonna do Command T to add a track. Again, are we all following so far? I know I'm like doing a lot of stuff. Yeah? Okay, cool. If there is a question, just literally shout it out, and yeah. So I'm placing a hi-hat down and then doing Command D to start placing that over. And so this is just a really simple one, so. Okay, cool. And so now I kind of want to extend this pattern right here. So I'm going to do Command Shift D again, and that's going to copy everything that we've made over here. So I'm going to take one more way over here. That's cool. Okay. Duplicate that over. Okay, cool. So we've got kind of a basic drum pattern going right now, right? So now I want to kind of start adding melodies. And so if you're first starting making music, like a lot of people will go into, I'm going to make everything myself. And while that does, like, while that can work, it takes a lot of time to get there. And so what I would recommend doing is really just going into loops and start, it's really instant gratification of making stuff, right? So, which feels great in music. So let's find I really like this loop, so we're gonna use this right here. So I'm gonna drag this in here, right? And I'm gonna do Command E and cut this in half for now. And so we're just gonna listen to this. Right? Okay, so let's click into the sample. So double tap the top, right? Pulls up that same screen that we saw before. And so what's up?
So the sample says it's in 155 BPM, but your project is in 145 BPM. So how did...
That's a great question. So Ableton kind of does it automatically when I drag in a sample, but I was actually just going to get into that. But good question. So we've got this warp mode up here, right? And let's hear what it sounds like if I turn off the warp mode. See how that got shorter? That's because the sample is no longer in time. This sample is playing at 155, where everything else is playing at 145 beats per minute, right? So if I soloed this, it wouldn't sound that bad. But if I played it in context, right, it sounds off. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna click this warp button right here, right? And so this sample right up here says how fast it's going. And so there's actually this little section right here that says BPM, and we're just gonna do 155, and it automatically will shift that over to 155, right? And then I'm gonna try to pitch it down a little bit. And one thing that's really nice about Ableton, I don't really know if you guys have different warp modes and whatnot in FL, but in Ableton, you can kind of pitch things around in different ways. So I like doing texture a lot. And I'm gonna pull this grain size up and... I see.
I do, but
not. Yeah. No, I hear you. I like that. Okay. So now we've got this going. So I kind of like Mikey was doing before. I kind of want to cut out some of the low end here. So I'm going to add an EQ, right? And we're gonna go into that EQ, go into this section. I'm gonna grab this and cut out the low end. So just like a little bit of basic stuff. The EQ can show you what frequencies are being played at what time, right? And if that is a little confusing, it'll make more sense over time. But your lower stuff right here, like your bass, is going to be playing down here, where like your vocals, you're going to hear the most. That's going to be in your middle section, and then like your hi-hats and stuff, that's going to be up here, right? So notice how that changed? Kind of a subtle change. But if you even go... Okay, so we've got that going now. I want to add some reverb onto this as well. So go down here, reverb. You can also do Command F and then just look up reverb, and that's how I do a lot of my stuff, is just looking it up. But let's add that. Okay, and I want to do a little bit of a glitch thing going on right here. So I'm going to literally select a small clip and then do Command E, and then I'm going to double tap this part right here, and I'm going to do Shift up key, and then we're going to like pitch that up, right? Okay, so we've kind of got our basic beat right here. Something that you'll use a lot when producing music is something called sidechain. And so what sidechain is that when you listen to a lot of your songs, the kick is one of the loudest parts that you hear, and you want that. And if you don't use sidechain, it doesn't allow, like, you won't hear that kick as much. And so what happens with sidechain is it literally, every time the kick comes in, it will duck the audio of everything else or certain other elements and then bring it back up, right? And so I'll show you what that actually looks like here. So I'm going to grab my sidechain preset right here. And so every time that the kick comes in, I'm going to duplicate this in here, right? And it's going to add a little bit of nice swing to it. So I'm using a compressor right here. There's plenty of tutorials on how to set up your sidechain things. I won't go into it just because, yeah, what's up?
How does the compressor work?
How does a compressor work?
Yeah.
Like genuinely? Yeah. Okay, so a compressor works by, like, okay, you've got a section of audio playing. You've got multiple sounds. Let's just take the drums, for example, right? Everything's kind of playing at different volumes, right? And so what we can do is to compress it, we bring the quiet sounds louder and the louder sounds quieter, and you can hear that all at once. Our compressor that we're using for sidechain here is actually not going to compress. It's not actually going to do compression. It's just lowering the volume. But does that kind of make sense? I know I kind of just like skipped over that pretty quickly, but that's how a compressor works in its most basic way. So, okay. Now we're going to start sidechaining stuff. So notice you kind of have that more pumping motion. That's because every time that the kick hits, we have this ducking. Yeah, I want to pitch this up a little bit. Okay.
Is that affecting only the kick or like the rest of it too?
Oh no, actually it's only affecting, so the sidechain is following this little trigger right here, right? This purple thing up here. And I've told my melody to actually duck down when it's happening, right? So if we just played the kick in that, and without this, it would sound like this. So it's just a little bit messier, but does that kind of make sense? Okay, cool. Yeah, and let me know if you want me to re-explain anything. But yeah, so let's add some bass now. I've included a couple 808s and like actual like bass, like guitar bass. I know, a little cheesy. This is my favorite 808 of all time, is right here. So we're gonna when we're messing with audio, when we're messing with this 808 here, I'm gonna turn the warp mode off because we want that bass to be as clean as possible, and warp can mess that up. And so I'm gonna pitch this up so I can hear if it's in time or not. Holy shit.
Do you ever do your 808s in like MIDI?
Huh? Do I ever do it? Yes, I do, and that's if I wanted to do like glide stuff and whatnot,
But
and which
otherwise, you're like manually changing each note by pitching it
specifically for 808s. With other like Reese basses and whatnot, I will use like actual MIDI clips.
around. Okay.
And I'll show you how to we'll make a little melody for this. That sounds about right. So we're gonna pitch that down. Yeah, that's good. Yep, it is a shortcut, and we'll go into this, and this is click on the pitch right here, do shift up. Yeah, shift up and down, and that works also in MIDI. Is shift up and down. So, and so I also kind of want the I want the 808 to kind of duck. Because we want one low end thing going at a time for a lot of stuff. So notice how that kick is really standing out in everything else. Is that kind of making sense? Okay, cool. So let's add a quick melody here, and then we'll just kind of wrap up making this beat. So I'm going to grab. I'm actually going to just look up bell sounds. And then we're gonna go into sounds here. This is the best part of music production. Sorry, that sounds nice. Okay. So we've now we've created a MIDI track, so you can just right click and then insert MIDI track, or also do Command Shift T and that'll insert a MIDI track. You can do Command T to add an audio track, which is what all of this stuff is up here. So let's create a little thing. I'm gonna turn this way down. Right? Okay, and we can also just add some audio effects here, right? And let's go reverb. Notice how it's very ethereal. I also want to take off a little bit of the high end, and so I'm going to grab our EQ8, which is up here. There it is. We're going to also sidechain that. Okay, so any questions about how I've made everything so far? No? Everything looks good? Okay, cool. So now I'm super proud of this beat. I want to save it. So what we're going to do is Command S or go up here to File Save. We're going to do...
Green.
Huh? Green, yeah, I know, it's weird. Anyway, give me a word. Green is one of them. Give me a noun.
There we go. Chicken.
Chicken. Reminds me of Dr. Seuss. Okay, we've now saved our Ableton file, and we can reopen this file up here in Open Green Chicken, right? And I actually want to listen to this on my walk, and so let's just duplicate this over, Command-Shift-D, and that's going to duplicate it over a couple more times, right? And so now we've got everything happening here. So I'm going to do Shift-Click and select this entire portion of audio, and then we're going to go File, Export Audio, and then I'm going to call this Green Chicken Demo. And then now it's saved to a file location on my computer. And now, you know, we can just listen to it on walks or some shit. So, anyway, yeah, so That's the beat. Any questions? Yeah, what's up?
Not sure if you're gonna get into this, but how do you arrange your beats?
How do I arrange my beats? I actually go. It's more of a. For me, most of the time I will literally go linearly. So you mentioned like you structure stuff out beforehand. For me, I will structure it as I'm going, right? But like, you know, I'll do it kind of similar. So I'm actually gonna group all of my drums here together. So grouping allows you to both like make things more organized, but also make effect sounds all together, right? So that's now a group. I'm gonna shorten that. So let's turn that off. And so let's just have our, we've turned all of our things off here. So now it's gonna, God, that sounds actually so out of key now that I hear it. But it didn't before, yeah. But a lot of the time I will like literally just go linearly. But you can also kind of similarly, if you want to stay organized, you can add a locator right here. And then like, let's say this is the intro, right? So click that, Command R, intro, right? And then add locator, beats. Cool. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I guess I was wondering, like, because I structure my beats out for artists to
Sure.
rap or sing on.
Yeah,
You know, like hook, verse, hook.
absolutely.
Do you do it differently?
I do it differently, and that's a much more organized and like better way to like make something for an artist is doing it like structuring it out beforehand. Actually, I'm going to talk to you more about that because I'd like to learn your
I guess
mindset on
if
it.
you're just making a standalone beat.
Like a beat for me,
Yeah.
then I will structure it out linearly as I go. So I work on one section, and then I work on the next section, and then I work on the next section. And so let's actually look at what a real beat would look like. So, okay, I'm going to open this up. It's called Homebound, DAC Ableton Workshop. And then don't save. Oh,
Save that?
did I not? Wait, no, I saved. I saved Green Chicken, but sorry. It's gone forever. Okay, so this is what an actual Ableton thing looks like. So when I'm making myself, I group things into melodic, effects, drums, and bass. But, you know, you can go about doing it in different ways. But that's really your main sections right here, right? And then, you know, something else you can add is like a vocals section if you have it. But anyway, that's that. And so let me just play out the beat so you guys can hear what we're going to be exploring.
Get your gun ready. Let's get a few facts straight, shall we? Let's get a few facts straight, shall we?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Okay, cool. So so everything that I've shown you pretty much so far is the basic way that you make beats, right? So earlier we pulled in our first starting sample, and this is the sample that we have right here. Got. So all I've really done here is play the sample and then like duplicated parts over to make it sound glitchy. And then in this effects section, all I've really got going on is I feel like some of the frequencies up here were a little harsh, so I turned them down, and same thing right here, right? And then I've got my compressor that's really side-chaining stuff, which, you know, we've kind of gone over. And so we've also got this sound up here. So that doesn't really sound all that great in like out of context, but something to kind of know that like you don't need everything to sound perfect when you're making stuff. Like everything that like the sum of all of your sounds will end up sound like masking some of those mess ups. So I just, you know, that's just kind of something that I try not to have everything perfect. Focus more on trying to keep the flow going, right? So and see, that doesn't sound as bad in context. And then the last thing that we have going on here is this little MIDI melody, right? And all I've done here is draw out these notes. Cool. And I've added a few other effects right here. So we've got this is just a sound, a bell sound, and without the effects on it, it sounds like this. Right, and so I've added Redux, which basically makes it sound 8-bit, delay, reverb. Utility is a great thing. It just literally, I use it mostly for turning stuff up and down. And yeah, so yeah. And then let's get into the drums. So let's start with our kick right here, right? And then we've got the MIDI, the side chain trigger following it, and so that just we're gonna minimize that. And then we've got our snare, right? And then we also got some hi-hats up here. I'm using a drum loop and then cutting out the things that I don't want to hear, right? It sounds weird on its own, right? And then we've got this little percussion loop going. So now with all those sounds together, it sounds like this. And then I'm also doing some audio processing right here. So if I turn everything off, it's going to sound like this. So going kind of back to this, what I'm doing here is literally here, I'm going to turn everything off and go one by one. So I'm adding a saturator. What a saturator does is it like distorts things and kind of adds a little bit more color to sounds. So we've gone from this to this. And it also just naturally brings up the volume. And then I have a compressor right here, which we've kind of talked about before. I'm still learning how to use compressors even to this day, but even still, this is like I've brought down the threshold. So, you know, the threshold is basically when should it start turning stuff up and down, right? And so anyway, if it hears something at -11 dB, then it will bring it up or turn it down to that. So anyway, we've gone from this to this. Kind of a subtle sound, but it makes everything feel fuller. I'm turning it up right here. And then multiband dynamics is just another EQ. It's it's if an EQ and a compressor had a baby, it'd be a multiband dynamics. And then just a basic EQ to kind of de-harshify things and make the top end a little clearer. So I know there is so much going on here. Do we have any questions?
You have all those effects kind of in order, and you're starting out with, is that like a rack type scenario?
Oh, you mean this thing over here? Yeah. So honestly, what you can do is, this is just a group, right? And so I can select all of these things. So Shift click and then Command G right here, and that'll put everything in one thing, right? And then I can create macros, which is a really cool thing that Ableton can do. I know FL has something similar, but let's say I wanted to affect both my my drive and my threshold. That would really make sense in real life, but you can do that. And so now this is controlling both things right here. So if you look at that, you have to use Patcher to do that in FL. Yeah.
Can we hear what it would sound like if you attached a trigger for your sidechain?
What? How so? What? You want everything to get sidechained?
Yeah.
Okay, including the kick.
Oh yeah, I guess this is on.
Yeah, but what we can do that. So literally, the way that I would handle this is bring everything up right here. And so this is just our kick that we're focusing on. Gonna group all of this stuff together. Grouping is your best friend. And then I'm gonna go over here, copy my sidechain template, and then paste it over here. And so now, right? And so every time that the kick comes on, it's not like super like bad, but that's what it sounds like with all of that stuff going through sidechain. So anyway, that's that. Then I've just got this bass going right here. And then I don't know how to play bass guitar, and even if I did, I'm sure I wouldn't be all that great at it. So I wanted to get a little bit of a slap bass in there even still, and so I took a sample of someone really going at it at doing slap bass, and it sounds something like this. Very, very groovy and funky and cheesy. Anyway, and I've literally just got some of the parts that I think are really cool, and so that in context kind of sounds like this. Right? And so that's what I've used to put that together. And so, yeah. Any questions about that? Okay, so this is kind of a creative thing that Ableton's delay is. I have a lot of fun with Ableton's delay, and so if you notice something that's kind of going on right here, you'll notice the pitch kind of go down on these samples. So without that, it would just sound like. So what I'm doing here is Ableton's delay has this repitch mode that if you turn the time up, it will repitch the sample in real time. And so I've literally done that. I've turned on ping pong, which basically every time the delay hits, it will do this kind of stereo effect, right? And so it kind of sounds like the audio is reversing between those two, which is just kind of a fun little thing here. And I think you can do that in Vintage Verb, is my guess would be.
You can do that in just a default delay too. It does that.
Does it have that? Okay, yeah. But that would be how you would create like a tape stop effect,
Wait, so do you have a tape stop and a delay on there?
No. This is a tape stop. This is just I call it my cassette stop, but this is just a group right here, right? So if I just ungrouped, it's just
delay time.
Exactly. Yep. And so that's what's happening here. So yeah.
And when it's not playing, it turns off, like the
whole delay turns off?
The whole delay turns off. Yeah, but that's something special that I had to go in and do. I can if anybody goes into Ableton, please call me, text me. I'd love to explain this, I could show you how you could do that. So anyway, that's a really cool feature that Ableton has. And then so we've finished all of that. So that's our chorus. So let's go into. So we've repurposed this thing right here, and to start playing some chords, which a chord is literally just multiple notes being played at once. And that little pitch thing is just coming from that tape stop that we were working with before. And so, yep, drums have slightly changed. I took out some of these hi-hats over here and then added this little thing. So okay, we've got all that, and then in my effects section, I've got like this little scratchy thing, and then I've got this dude just saying go, and so I have 2 tracks of it playing, one with delay on it and reverb, and then I've got one without it. So the one with reverb sounds like this, and then I've got one without it, and I just wanted to add a little bit of syncopation there. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the most part of this section right here. We've got our bass going, same little idea. I've got some processing on here. I swear, this looks like a lot, but like when you're in the flow of it, it just kind of comes out of you, you know? I think we all, anyway. So, so moving on, so I've got this fading in right here, and what's nice about Ableton is you can literally have Ableton like fade in samples like that. And then I've pitched it down. So this is the regular sample, right? And then I've pitched it down 5 semitones, which we were talking about before. Perfect fifth, just pitched down. I know no music theory. That's just something that comes with naturally. So that's what this sounds like. So that's a little bit different right here. So yeah. So we go into this pitched down version of this, right?
Let's get a few facts straight, shall we?
And we've pretty much just switched to a whole new key, pretty much, right here. And that's, we've gone from this up here to this. And pretty much the exact same processing on it. Not a whole lot's going on there. And then I've pretty much just copy and pasted everything that was going on in this section over here, so I don't feel like I need to go over that too much. And over here, we go back to the original key, actually, so check this out. I'm gonna turn this up. Right? And then, you know.
The bass guitar changed, no?
The bass guitar did change, yeah, because this is a whole new key, so we can't be playing the same notes that we were playing over here because it would sound weird. I can show you guys what that would sound like, but I'm gonna spare you that. But yes, we did change the bass guitar. So the original sound is this. Right? And then in this new section, it's this. Right? And then when we go back to our other key, we go back to the original 2 notes. Right? And so, yeah. I haven't really taught you guys how to automate stuff, have I? Which is kind of important. So if you click this button A here, just on your keyboard, you can open up the automation area. And if you click on any parameter, you can just click on it and you can see, I'm just telling Ableton when to like start doing stuff, right? So if we did. All right, we can get super weird with stuff. Right? So anyway, that's how you automate. I feel like I've totally brushed over that, but
So you're recording parameters.
I'm recording parameters. It's kind of like a composer. I'm telling my musicians to get louder and then quieter and whatnot. So yeah, it's doing it for me. It's automating it for me. So that's that. And then we've got, yeah, I've kind of changed our, actually, no, this is pretty much all the same. So yeah. I've just got this kind of, this noise fade in right here. And that's the end of the song. Do we have any questions about stuff? I know there. Yes. What's up, Brody?
Yeah, I got a question. So when you're doing your sidechain,
Yeah.
you have like the little MIDI trigger, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. The way I learned sidechaining is you can do it through the compressor. Like, is there an advantage the way you do it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So you're saying sidechaining directly to the kick. So you're telling the compressor to listen to the kick. Yeah. Underbelly, did you watch that video or is it?
Well, yeah, I watched a lot of Underbelly.
Underbelly's fantastic. If one of the resources that is fantastic for learning Ableton, You Suck at Producing. It's the strangest channel, but also explains things so well. So anyway, Underbelly or You Suck at Producing, look that up. And so the advantage to why I'm doing it here, so this is what our actual sidechain sounds like. You can't hear it in the real song, but if we solo this by clicking S, right, that's what it sounds like, right? And what I can do here is I can like make this longer or really short, right? And I can control how fast my side chains, like how long things have to duck for, right? So if we turn this way up, let's do that just for the sake of demonstration.
Straight, shall we?
Let's lower that.
Straight, shall we?
Right? And so I'm just able to control that a little bit better. And so that's why I do it, and I don't have to, like, let's say that a kick plays, but I don't want to sidechain stuff, right? That just allows me to, like, ignore that sidechain, you know? I'm just placing it in specific spots, so.
You like delete that little MIDI note right there?
Yeah, and so, like, if we did this, we wouldn't have to sidechain.
Shall we?
Right? As opposed to. So let's go back to. So that's why I do it with the MIDI sidechain. And what's also nice is in Ableton 12, what you can do is like create a template. And so all I have to do is literally drag. I look up sidechain over here. I've created a project, and I just look up that sidechain project, and I can drag it in here. And now I've got this whole sidechain thing going on right here, right? Again, you'll learn sidechain differently, but like planting this seed might help if you start learning sidechain. If you want to like upgrade your sidechain game or streamline it. So yeah, how about any other questions? Dope. Okay.
How much does Ableton cost?
It's a great question. So I made a free sample pack for you guys, and okay, Ableton costs For the like light version, $99, which only allows you to make 16 tracks. For the standard version, I know, Ableton. For the standard version, it costs $500. And for Suite, it costs $700, which is lower than the highest tier of FL. I'm just saying.
Discount.
Huh?
For Ableton,
You can get when I bought it in high school, I got it for $500, or $440 or something like that, somewhere around there. What's up, Xander?
Does Ableton have Sound Goodizer?
Ableton doesn't have Sound Goodizer specifically, but we can like pretty much replicate what Sound Goodizer does because
Not the same.
it's not the same. You're right.
I'm actually curious if you could. I don't know if you did.
So yeah, like I said, so what's really cool is I made this for you guys so that you can open it up on any computer. You don't need any plugins except for Ableton Suite, which these two, by the way, these two computers have Ableton Suite, so you can learn and produce on those. And so you'll be able to open up this sound file and not need anything else except this. And so I've created this sound pack like we've been plugging this entire time before. Right? There's so much stuff in here. There's no real rhyme or reason or theme, but you can download it from this link right here if anybody wants a new sample pack. Come on, someone pulled their phones. There we go.
I already got it, otherwise
Oh, you already had it? Okay, cool. Yeah, there's honestly some really good samples in there. Some good song starters. Yeah, so thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. And like we said, don't forget, last show next Wednesday, 6:30 to 8 in the Cub Auditorium. Show up. It's going to be fun.